Today we're going to talk about CBD and understanding what it is not, and what you want to look for when choosing a good CBD product. So before I go over my list, Dr. Frank, I'd like to hear from you about what you were looking for in a product before you decided to incorporate it in your office.
Yeah, of course. So for us, when we arrived upon utilizing CBD BioCare, there was a few things on my checklist that I wanted to see in a product. And now, mind you, I've worked in the supplement industry for 9 years prior to becoming a chiropractor. So supplements, over-the-counter products was nothing new to me. And I knew that there was some factors that I wanted to see. So right off the bat, when it comes to CBD, I like that you guys were going the route of organically and domestically grown. That was very important to me. One of the other things that was very important too was the third-party testing. I talk about this all the time. It doesn't matter what the supplement is, but I find knowing that you're actually getting what the supplement claims you're getting out of that product is so important. And the fact that you guys were able to provide the third-party testing on the amount of CBD in the product, the third-party testing on that has to do with the heavy metal testing and the nutrients in the soil and worrying about other toxins, you guys had that information readily available. So organically grown, domestically grown, third-party testing. Now, this is probably the biggest one that I still see people misled on, or maybe they try a product and it didn't work as well. The fact that your product is full spectrum was also very important to me too when we were looking at CBD products. A lot of products on the market out there are CBD isolate. Now, in defense of some of those products, yes, there is research supporting the isolate, but when you really get down to it, and when we're talking about CBD for all the different topics me and you have covered, it's really the full spectrum product that you're looking for. And what does full spectrum mean? It contains cannabinoids, not just CBD, but the other 99 or 101 cannabinoids as well. Now, minus the THC, I know you guys go the extra step to take out all of the THC, which isn't always the case. Legally, I think it's 0.3% or something like that you're allowed to have in it. I know you guys take that extra step. For us, that was important, even though with that legal amount, no one should have an issue with a drug test. I just really wanted to be sure that we had a product with no THC. We have a lot of people that we work with in my offices, corporate jobs, this, that, and they get regularly tested. So we just wanted to go above and beyond and make sure they didn't have any issues. So full spectrum, organically grown, domestically grown. And then I think one of the best parts was when I reached out to your company, you, Matthew, at the time, it was very easy to get in contact and ask questions. Where are you guys sourcing this from? You got back to me almost immediately. I can tell you other companies, they weren't getting back to me. It would just be a really shady conversation. It just, obviously, it sounds like I'm uncomfortable dealing with my patients. So I think that ease of access, the transparency that you guys have was really a great thing. And above all else, from a physician standpoint, by far, you guys, I would say, continue to be on the forefront of education when it comes to this product. And you might have a great CBD product, but if you're not educated on how to use it correctly, it's worthless at that point. So,
Well, everything you've just said is music to my ears, because every point that you mention is exactly what we want to convey to our customers or anybody that's visiting our site. We want to be really transparent. Here's why. My background is in journalism. And when my husband and I were first investigating what is CBD, what makes a good product, when is it CBD, when is it hemp, when is it marijuana, it was very, very confusing. Now, mind you, this is 2016, so it was a period of time where there was not a lot of information. We are in an age where if we want information, what do? We go to the internet and we Google it. And it was very frustrating because there wasn't a lot of information. It wasn't clear. The information was there, but it was still very gray. And I'm a journalist. I wanted facts. I wanted proof. I wanted research. And I was having a hard time getting that. So I went old school and I picked up the phone and spoke to a lot of people. I had to be sure before we were going to be moving forward with a business that I could really determine what made a good product and what didn't. And one of the most frustrating things for me when I was searching was trying to get the information. what is it? I was having a hard time. I knew that hemp was rope and paper. So how are you telling me this is medicine? But yet I just watched a report by Dr. Gupta from CNN called Weed. And if you are watching this and you have not seen that 3-part series, go watch it. Because when we watched that series, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. People don't know about it. This is criminal. But before we knew, because there's products out there that aren't clean, we had to make sure that we asked the right questions and provided the right information. The other thing is when someone comes to my website, I want it to be in your face. This is what you need to know. Whether you buy my product or another product, here are the points. And it's everything, Dr. Frank, that you just mentioned. Full spectrum CBD, domestically grown, organically grown, USA manufactured, because there's laws in place to protect the consumer. Even though CBD is still an unregulated, not certified product, there are processes within this space that make it safer. And then there is some responsibility for the individual, the consumer, to say, okay, well, is it third-party tested? How do I know that I'm getting what they say that we're getting? And that's why we say that we test, third-party test from plant to product, because in order for hemp to be legal in the United States, it needs to be 0.3% less THC. So the plant looks exactly like marijuana. The only difference between the two plants, the marijuana plant and the hemp plant that's medicinal, not the plant that you get rope from, okay? The only difference is the THC content. So it is important that it's tested from plant to final product. So what happens is it's processed at the farm and it's tested. Then it goes to the manufacturer where it's bottled in an FDA food grade facility. You can eat off the floor in this facility. It's tested there for potency and for to make sure that it's less than 0.3%. And then we test it when we receive it to make sure we're testing everybody to make sure we're getting what we're paying for, and that we're also making sure that it's compliant, because that's really important. So everything that you just said that you were looking for was exactly what a good shopper wants to know, right? So we educate them on what's important to know and then give them the proof that we are what we say we are.
100%. And you guys really hit the nail on the head for that. For me, it's so simple, right? No matter what I give a product, especially now in the role of, I'm not working at Vitamin Shop anymore, it's more the role of a physician. I want to make sure whatever I recommend works as well as I expect it to for that individual. And if it doesn't work, I don't want it to be at the fault of myself for choosing a poor quality product, because that then reflects poorly on myself as a physician, poorly on my practice. So really the quality and the time and effort that you guys put into this, just it sold itself to us. We didn't have any more questions after we spoke to your company.
That's awesome. So the other thing that I want to speak to is the full spectrum versus broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is a phrase that has entered the marketplace to describe a product that has THC removed. The reality is, I think that there's two products that we need to look at. Full spectrum, which means all of the cannabinoids, including THC, and then an isolate. You referenced isolate earlier, and for those of you that are new to this subject, isolate means isolated from the oil. The CBD is isolated and then removed. And then that's all it is CBD. CBD is a great anti-inflammatory, it's a great antioxidant, but if you're truly looking for a medicinal product, you want a full spectrum. Now, the argument right now in the marketplace is, well, if you're removing THC, then it's really not full spectrum. I would argue that, and I want you to let me know what you think. I see what our product has done for years now in terms of helping people, that we do offer full spectrum results. By putting 0.3% or such a small amount of THC to be able to call it full spectrum, or even higher levels of THC, I think that you can receive a full spectrum benefit because all of the other cannabinoids are present. So our oil is absolutely full spectrum because everything is present. All of the molecules, even THC, is present but we do isolate and remove the THC, but there can still be very trace elements, nothing that will cause you to get high, and nothing that will show positive on a drug test, but it's still there and you're still getting all the benefits. So calling it broad spectrum to me is more of a marketing term, and not really something that we need to differentiate ourselves from. What are your thoughts about that?
I completely agree with you. I saw this all the time in the supplement industry. It's marketing terms, and it's trying to get an edge on someone else or create some area of a point to make another sale. We see it all the time. No, I think the real conversation should be not, and I agree with you, not full spectrum versus broad spectrum. It's really, okay, is this an isolate or is this a full spectrum product? Is it just CBD isolate, or is it CBD with trace amounts of all the other cannabinoids, just like your product is? And quite frankly, I don't think there's any need to differentiate between full spectrum and broad spectrum is a waste of time. I think it's a marketing ploy. I couldn't agree more on that. In your product, I can tell you firsthand, I've had people come in and say, I tried CBD, it did not work. And we look and it's a CBD isolate. We give them CBD BioCare's products, and it's a game changer. I'm getting a phone call the next day saying, you wouldn't believe how I slept. You wouldn't believe how much calmer I was, how much more focused I was. Why didn't my other one work? And then we explain it to them again. That was an isolate. This is a full spectrum product. So I would agree, based on the literature that I've seen, based on the results that we see with our patients, the product that you supply is, of course, it's full spectrum. And I'll say this caveat, there may be people who do need some more THC. Let's say it's MS, let's say they're dealing with other conditions. We touched on maybe ADHD at some point. Some of these people may need a little more THC, which is fine. You can go get that depending on the state where you live, through a medical clinic, or, in some states recreationally, you can figure that out. But no, for all intents and purposes, your product is absolutely full spectrum. Absolutely.
And absolutely, we're definitely not saying that THC isn't used sometimes, but the 0.3%, it's such a trace amount anyway. So again, we are a full spectrum product, even though we go the extra mile and remove that teeny bit of THC that's left in the plant to begin with. The other thing that is important, which used to be illegal, is a whole plant extraction. If you are going to receive flowers from someone and you just received the stems, you'd be pretty disappointed, right? So the beauty of any plant are the leaves and the flowers and the whole plant as a whole, right? So it used to only be legal to extract CBD from a stalk and import it from Europe. No longer the case. The richest cannabinoids and the benefit of this amazing plant comes from the whole plant. The buds, the flowers, that's where you're going to get the richest quality. And so a whole plant extraction is also really critical. There are still companies out there that just extract from the stalk. So yes, is there CBD there? Yes, but is that the quality? Again, are you going to be happy with the stalks if you have flowers delivered, or do you want the whole plant? So it's really common sense. So a whole plant extraction is also really, really important. And right now, the preferred extraction method is a supercritical CO2 extraction process. And that's also something that you want to consider. Now, what I always tell people, Dr. Frank, is it's so difficult sometimes to differentiate. When you're looking at a bottle, you go, okay, well, what is that? And what is this, right? Because there's not our company does it one way, another company does it another way. So I always say, make a T-chart. You can go to my homepage on my website, and there's an area that says, right on the homepage, what makes CBD BioCare different? We list 6 points. Take those 6 points and write CBD BioCare on one side, and then go to the company's website that you're shopping us against and see if they have those points. If they don't, then you have to make a decision. And then the other thing is, if they are not telling you, then there's what else aren't they telling you, right? Company transparency was really important to us, because I, as a shopper in the early days, I couldn't find the information. And then I dialed the phone number that was maybe given, and I could never talk to anybody. So those companies I would just dismiss immediately, because I needed information before I was going to put something in my body.
I could not agree more with that. Company transparency is so vital. If you look at any of the top brand supplements that you can find in a supplement store, these companies are extremely transparent. The ones that are not never survive. And you're going to see that over the next few years with CBD. These companies that aren't transparent, they're going to be open today and they're going to be closed tomorrow. We see it all the time in the supplement world. Now, you mentioned the CO2 extraction too. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I would say most places now aim to do that method, but there are other less superior methods using butane, using oil, using other things that are not, one, healthy to the consumer, and they damage the quality of the product. And one of the main reasons why, if people look at CBD BioCare's oil, and I love this about you guys, your carrier oil is the hemp seed oil itself, which is rich in omega fatty acids. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you extract an oil in the presence of heat, it damages those fats, it damages those omegas. In turn, that will ruin the rate of absorption for these CBD oils. So if we're using CBD oils, whether it has coconut oil in it or hemp oil as the carrier oil, if they extracted that in the presence of heat, they maybe not only damage the CBD, but now there's also been damage done to that carrier oil. So that was a huge thing when I was looking at your company and when I saw that you guys did do the CO2, supercritical CO2 extraction process, trying to keep it at the lowest temperatures possible to get this oil extracted. I was just, again, another thing that I was thrilled to see.
Well, and the other thing that was important to us is to have 100% hemp product, because even though a carrier oil of coconut oil or another MCT oil can be good and give you a long shelf life, I just, logic told me that hemp with hemp was a better product as opposed to adding anything else. Adding anything, a foreign substance of anything, just to me wasn't the ideal situation. Again, not necessarily bad, but I wanted to be better. So we have a full spectrum CBD oil that is mixed with a hemp seed oil. So that therefore it's 100% hemp product. The only time it isn't 100% hemp is if you have some of our organic peppermint flavoring that's added, because some people don't like the flavor of it. I personally prefer the natural flavor. It's very earthy. It's very natural tasting. Does sometimes take a little bit of getting used to, but that's something that I like, is that it's 100% hemp, nothing else that's added.
One of the big things that I tell people is they'll bring in other products, and this may be intentional on the company's part. They will add other things into it. Turmeric, coconut oils, olive oils, other essential oils. I was never a huge fan of blended products, because now if we're not getting results, I don't know if you're not getting results because you have quote unquote a watered down product, because there's all these other things in there. Whatever I'm talking about when it comes to supplements, I prefer, just like you're saying, if it comes from hemp, let's keep the hemp in there. Let's not start crossing things and mixing it up. Because now I don't know if your response, the fact that you didn't respond to something, was due to another ingredient in there, or if it had to do with the product itself. So the simpler, the better when it comes to supplements. I tell people that all the time. The less ingredients, the better. And in my opinion, especially when it comes to CBD.
The other thing is that you'll see on the marketplace, people will ask me, well, are you infusing your product with more terpenes? No, we're not. So it's kind of funny what has happened in the marketplace. It's like, oh, terpenes are good, so let's add more. Let's isolate them and then add them more. No, the less is best. Orange juice is the best when you squeeze it straight from the orange, right? Not when you infuse it with more sugar or more citrus flavor. It's keeping it as natural as possible. The plant is perfect. It's man that screws it up. If you trace this plant back 2,000 years, it didn't have high levels of THC. It didn't, man created these marijuana super plants that have these enormous amounts of THC in it and low CBD. It's man that has done that. So if you take this plant back to its most natural state, that's where it's perfect. So infusing it with a bunch of other things is not necessary. Now, will we find later on that maybe there's different strains of CBD that are better or whatever, possibly, right? That's not my area of expertise, but you already have terpenes in the oil. If you can taste it, which you certainly can, and you can smell it, which you certainly can receive a marijuana type smell to it, those are terpenes. And you don't need to add a bunch of things to make this oil successful for you. Now, we've talked about maybe increasing the THC content. You might have to play with the cannabinoids, and you want a full spectrum CBD oil to start with, which I believe works for 95% of the people who are taking it. And you can counter that or support that, Dr. Frank. But some people do, with the conditions that you've mentioned, some people do need a little bit of THC to help them with this product, because cannabis works. I go out on a limb and I say cannabis works 100% of the time. It's about finding what amount of cannabis and the perfect balance for you so that it works for you.
Absolutely. And I love the point you made about, I was going to say that earlier, look, we really do have something that's so perfect. Don't touch it, especially when it comes to cannabis. What do we always say in these podcasts? More is not always better, right? So what would the last thing you want to do be? Try and add more to the plant itself. If we're already telling people more is not always better to consume, well, why go that route with the actual chemistry of the plant itself? So I agree with that. And then I do agree with you that 95%, and I think that's a safe number to say. I can tell you from literature, I think they have it quoted at 80% of conditions are going to respond. So whether we're going off of personal experience or we're quoting literature, let's just call it 80% or above of conditions are probably going to respond just really, really well to just the CBD full spectrum without the THC. And that covers a huge base of things. And then even if you go into it more with the THC, they're talking very tiny amounts. To your point, not the amounts that you're seeing today in these vape pens. I mean, you're seeing 98%, 96% THC. That was not meant to be the case. And we're now seeing that backfiring on a lot of people now that we're tampering with something that we probably shouldn't be tampering with, like a lot of things. You're seeing people for the first time overdose on marijuana. Again, nothing to do with CBD. I'm talking jumping to these high strain THC things that we've modified. They are now posing an actual risk, whereas before there really wasn't that risk. So it's unfortunate when people start to tamper with stuff to that level.
So the bottom line, what we want people to know is that there are a lot of good CBD products that are out there, but you have to be knowledgeable about what to look for. So we suggest looking for a full spectrum CBD product, a whole plant CO2 supercritical extraction, a product that is organically grown and domestically manufactured right here in the United States. Also, it's important that you have third-party testing from plant to product and company transparency. If you can't get that information, then move on. The other thing that I want to tell people is that there are companies out there that are selling CBD because they know that it's a profitable industry, it's new, and they're taking advantage of it. A bad CBD company hurts us all. CBD, when it's done right, is a fantastic, amazing product, as natural as possible. But somebody that sells a bad product and someone takes that product and doesn't have a good experience hurts the entire industry. That's why we're so committed to whether you buy my product or another product, make sure you do your research and can answer those questions. It's really imperative.
I completely agree. And of course, I'll go back to this. This is really what got me into you guys. The education that you provide, the community that you guys provide for your consumers, whether it be via the Facebook groups, whether it be via these podcasts. I actually think it's unparalleled right now compared to other CBD companies. And that is something that everyone should be able to appreciate.
Well, thank you, Dr. Frank. I'm so glad you're on board and you're helping us with that education.
Of course. Thank you, Stacy.
Okay. I thought that was good information.
Yeah, I do too. It was to the point. It just covered things. It was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Even when I was listening, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah.
Good. You usually do more of the talking.
No, that's good though. That's good.
Okay, so you want to switch and we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about
Yeah, we can do that. And I'll tell you too, I go give a talk I have to be there by 12:15. So it's up to you, whatever you think. It's about 15 minutes away. I have to be there to do another talk on CBD and chiropractic. So as long as I am done by like 11:50, that would work. What do
Oh
you
yeah,
think?
let's just make it short and to the point.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I can shotgun through it pretty quick and to the point if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll start a new one. Hi, my name is Stacy Pitts. I'm the co-founder of CBD BioCare, and today I am speaking with Dr. Frank Michalski, who's a functional medicine physician and chiropractor in Buffalo, New York. So Dr. Frank, I'm going to get right to it because we have a lot of people asking us about giving this product to a child who suffers from ADHD or maybe hyperactivity or focus in school. And I know my experience with CBD and focus. So what's the science behind whether CBD is a good option to help kids who either have high activity and lack of focus or anything within that realm?
Yeah, of course. So I think the hot topic these days is ADD and ADHD. Unless you've been completely unaware of what's been going on in healthcare, these two conditions, or we'll just say ADHD, has really been on the rise and at a very dramatic rate. We'll talk about maybe some of the reasons why, but what's really going on with these people? So your brain, like we've talked about many in other of our podcasts, the one on PTSD and anxiety, your brain can only handle so much information at once. And then it takes those experiences and that information and it organizes it into different compartments. So someone who does not have ADHD goes through their day and a million things happen. They answer emails, their kid gets sick, they got to leave work. Maybe their boss yells at them, they spill coffee on themselves, their computer shuts down and crashes, they have a huge success on a big sale. Their brain organizes all that in a very controlled manner. Someone with ADHD, those thoughts keep coming in, but they never get organized. So it creates this state of this hyperactive behavior or just an overall feeling of being overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, and I think everyone can relate to this, it's hard to think clearly. It's hard to make a good decision when there's a million decisions coming at you at once. Now, normally we should be able to interpret that, but in the case of ADHD, we can't. So what this science really looks at is why is this happening in individuals with ADHD? So there's a genetic predisposition to it. And the genetic predisposition really comes down to the body's ability to break down something called dopamine. Dopamine is a hormone and a neurotransmitter that it's one of those feel-good hormones, but it's also critical in telling our brain and helping our brain make decisions. So one, genetics. These individuals seem to not be able to break down and utilize dopamine properly. Two, there is a connection to micronutrient deficiencies. You need iron to break down dopamine. Look at the correlation between ADHD and anemias. You need healthy levels of magnesium. You need healthy levels of vitamin D3. Another huge one, zinc. You need zinc to protect the integrity of the brain in ADHD patients. One of the biggest ones, and I'll throw this out there, is our society's actually decline in consuming omega-3 fatty acids. So between 1909 and 1999, the food industry went at war with cholesterol, right? So it was, oh, get rid of the fats, increase the carbs. And we saw a boom in the canola oil industry. We saw a boom in the soybean oil industry. These are the vegetable oil industry, very unhealthy fats. These are omega-6 fats, and omega-6s are damaging to the brain. And what they found was individuals with ADHD had very, very low profiles of omega-3 fatty acids. So genetics plays a role, environmental factors play a role. I'll throw another one out there too. The health of your gut. There's great books out there. Just Google gut-brain connection and type in the word book after. The health of your gut plays a huge role in one's ability to focus and interpret thoughts throughout the day. About 80% of the neurotransmitters found in the brain are also found in the gut. They find that individuals with ADHD have higher levels of certain bacteria that destroy dopamine, that ruin how dopamine is used. And there's that connection between the gut and the brain with dopamine. So I keep mentioning dopamine, and for a very good reason, because when we're looking at medications that are commonly used to treat ADHD, medications that I personally think are going to be one of the next big disasters, kind of like opioids down the line, these are more often than not amphetamine-based medications, okay? So you would think, okay, an amphetamine makes someone hyper. Why are we giving this to someone who's already ADHD, someone who's already potentially hyper? Well, the amazing thing is when you give someone who truly has a dopamine problem an amphetamine, it actually allows that individual to make more dopamine, which in turn calms down the overactive individual. Now, CBD is being shown to have very promising effects on dopamine production and dopamine breakdown. This is the same reasons that they're looking at CBD as an antidepressant and as an anti-anxiety. And it's worth mentioning that a lot of individuals who suffer from ADHD also suffer from depression, anxiety. There's a correlation to ADHD and schizophrenia-like behavior. So when you think about the research already currently out there in plethora and coming more and more when it comes to CBD and anxiety, CBD and depression, you have to ask yourself, well, wait a minute, if it's helping with these because of its potential effects on dopamine, wouldn't it probably have a beneficial impact on someone suffering from ADHD? And I can tell you in our offices, I firmly believe the answer to be yes. We hear it from parents all the time. Go online, read about it. You will read testimonial after testimonial about parents utilizing CBD with children in order to help manage the ADHD. And let me say this, if you can use that as compared to some of these amphetamine-based medications, what a safer alternative. You know, I hear people say, oh, I'd never consider that with my kid, and their parent has to make a decision. You obviously have to be of age to utilize this. But at the end of the day, do you realize that that amphetamine is very similar to cocaine or MDMA, which is ecstasy? I don't know, if I was a parent and I could successfully pull it off with something more like CBD, that would certainly be my first line of approach.
Fantastic information. You know, we hear the same thing, and that's why we're talking about this today, because we have lots of parents that are telling us, my child was on X, I don't want to mention the actual drug, and now they're no longer taking it. Now, all that being said, work with a holistic practitioner to walk you through the process. We don't want you to just stop giving your child medication, but I've seen some of these kids medicated. My husband's a coach, and he says, you just see some of these kids in the dugout that are taking some of these drugs, and they're like glassed over. And we don't want that for our kids, right? So if we can give them an all natural product that doesn't inhibit them in any other way, that we can help them, my gosh, I really want people to try it. You know, it's so frustrating when we have all of these synthetic medications, but yet we have an all natural medication, a supplement that can help people. And I just want everybody to try it, right? That's my pitch.
Of course. And I think one of the neatest things about it is, and you're right when it comes to everybody to try it, because here's the thing, this is a fascinating, when I was going through the research on this, I discovered. So in theory, ADHD, these attention problems are due to lower levels of dopamine. Well, you can actually find a lot of literature saying the reverse, saying that no, these people actually have too much dopamine and they're not utilizing it properly. Now, these drugs create more dopamine. So what happens if this isn't the reason that someone has ADHD? That's where you start to see the heart racing, the insomnia, the insane mood swings, almost bipolar in nature. So CBD, the beautiful thing about it is we usually talk about it with that it's an adaptogenic style supplement. So it works with your body. And I think we're going to see this. If someone has too little dopamine, one way or another, the CBD is going to produce more. If they have too much, one way or another, it's going to break some of that down and utilize it better. it works with your body. And we actually have that confirmed when we look at studies on PTSD, which also looks at dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin. These studies are already being done. They just haven't been related yet to ADHD. They will. They will very soon. So I think to your point, these medications, these kids are glassed over. We don't know exactly how these medications are affecting kids. You can see that in the literature. Why not start with something that's minimal side effects, if any at all, and that's going to promote your body's balance, your body's homeostasis. It's going to work with you.
Absolutely. And we're talking about, I don't know if we've ever actually defined what ADHD is, but it's hyperactivity essentially, right? An attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So this chaos that you described when we first started speaking about this, I think we can all relate to that. I'm someone that I take on a lot and I get stressed, and I call it as, I've got all this plate spinning, and it's hard for me to focus. When I have so much going on, my husband calls it, paralysis by analysis. It's almost like you can't do anything because there's so much going on. I find when I take CBD that it calms, I call it calming the noise. It settles everything down to where I can focus, and I can be hyper focused. I keep the CBD on my desk and I just take a little bit, and it calms the noise so that I can be productive. And I'm assuming it's doing the same thing in these children. It's doing the same thing because it is a neuroprotectant. The government owns the patent that says that CBD is a neuroprotectant. So I feel very confident that we can say that.
Correct, absolutely. And I can tell you from personal experience, that was one of the biggest things I found. You're running a practice, in my case, you have patients calling, we're doing work with CBD, we're doing all these things at once. And of course, then you have your personal life. And I just found day to day that everything seemed more organized. No matter what was coming at me, it got processed, and I was able to produce a good result at the end of each day. You're seeing athletes give the exact same type of feedback that you were giving too. This is why this is becoming so popular in the athletic world, because of the focus these athletes are reporting. I've had patients, female softball players, I cannot tell you the number of female softball players that we have had say the focus they are getting from this product is something like they have not had before. And the beautiful part is it's not affecting their performance at all. It's enhancing, it's making it better. So I think that's a very good, very valid point that you brought up there on that day-to-day focus, which who couldn't benefit from that in today's world? You got the kids, the phone's ringing, the emails blowing up, who knows, right? And who doesn't need more focus in today's world?
That's right. Well, absolutely, we recommend that people seek a holistic practitioner. If you go to a Western medicine physician that is not experienced with CBD and not knowledgeable, you're going to hit a dead end, right? So seek out a holistic functional medicine practitioner would be our recommendation, to be able to work with someone who can help you work through your issues or your child's issues. Because if you can choose an all-natural product versus a synthetic medication, then that would be our vote. So thank you, Dr. Frank. Any final comments you'd like to make?
No, that was great. Just to what you said, go seek out, in conjunction with, or however you want to go about it, go seek out someone who can approach this from a nutrition standpoint, from a supplemental standpoint. I think the results you're going to see long-term are going to be beyond what you expected. And, for the people out there, I hate to disappoint them, but with the medications, the literature on it is poor. After 2 to 3 years, these kids lose response. And then now I'm tangenting again, but they wind up with addiction problems down the line. You can't give someone an amphetamine for 6 years of their life, and then when they hit closer to adulthood, tell them they don't need it anymore. Where do you think that leaves them? I can tell you, I saw friends from college and high school who had utilized a lot of these medications, and they wound up seeking other amphetamine-based stimulants when the doctor decided, well, I'm not giving you the script anymore. No plan to take them off. Nothing, just you're an adult now, you shouldn't need it. How horrible is that? So
Wow.
I couldn't agree more with you, Stacey. Holistic, if you can do it, seek out that holistic provider, please, if your kids suffer from this.
Yes, absolutely. And just really quickly, I want to make sure that you mentioned some other supplements. magnesium. And so is that, how do people know how much they should take, for different, is there?
Of course, yeah. And I'll say that on CBD too. So right off the bat, if you go to your website and you look up the CBD serving size of the micro dose to standard dose, I'd say anywhere from 5 milligrams a day up to 100 milligrams a day. You have to work with it, go slow. Again, refer to your website for those charts. You'll see how to do that. Other supplements, I can say right off the bat, everyone should be focusing on a very high quality fish oil. When we do the write-up, I'll give a recommendation in there on that. And if you are working with a functional medicine physician, they will do an iron panel. They will do an omega fatty acid profile. They can check the red blood cell magnesium concentrations. They can do a micronutrient profile where we look at zinc. So those are the big ones: zinc, iron, testing your ferritin levels. And then, this one's huge too. Look at this. I keep going backwards. MTHFR. We can do a whole nother podcast on this separately, but a lot of individuals with ADHD have been diagnosed with this MTHFR genetic defect. In short, that means your body cannot break down vitamins and nutrients and minerals properly. So B vitamins are one of the most popular ones. If you take a B vitamin, this enzyme, this MTHFR, has to convert that into the active form of the B vitamin. If you have the genetic variant, it won't be able to. And that can ruin all types of neural pathways and central nervous system function. So they'll test you for that. If you're working with someone who's holistic, that's pretty standard. And again, you have to focus on the supplementation. Use the CBD. We know it's showing benefit. And then, of course, nutrition. All this stuff is great when it's in conjunction with a healthy lifestyle. If you're not going to work on the lifestyle and your kid's at home drinking pop and eating candy all day long and glued to the Xbox and has a million things going on that aren't healthy, no, of course, this isn't going to correct itself with just these things. But if you start the CBD, I always tell people this is a great point to start to make that life change. Now it's a great time. It's a great time.
Well, you can tell we're both very passionate about this topic and passionate about CBD. We could keep going on. We can continue this chat. But for today, thank you so much, Dr. Frank.
Of course. Thank you, Stacey.
Bye.